You circled the captain's chair looking for anything that could tell you what had gone on when you lost contact. Instead, all you see is the stiff body of the ship's captain, slumped to the side and his hands tightly gripping the armrests. As you get closer to him, you see signs that whatever had happened to Lieutenant Bashir had also happened to him. Burns cover where his skin rests on the metal of the chair, and the back of his uniform shows scorch marks. You take a look at his name tag before stepping back. Rest in peace, Captain Gerard. But does he have an ID card on him? Although you'd made it this far, you knew that in order to have any chance of exploring the O'Brien further, let alone accessing its central computer, you need a key card that belonged to one of its crew. There'd be no better card to accomplish than the captain's. As you walk around to the front of the captain's chair, you shudder. The shock that must have killed him had left his hands clasping the armrests like talons. His face is gaunt and his eyes open wide, together with how the corners of his mouth had drawn back as far as they would go to a horrendous grin. His whole expression was unnerving, as if he had been killed by some fatal but hilarious joke. You know what you need to do, and although it's a practical necessity, something about it feels wrong. Sorry about this, Captain Gerard. You pat the captain down, but find no indication that he's carrying his keycard in his pockets. As you stand back for a moment, trying to think if there's anywhere he may have left it, your eyes are drawn to the hand tightly clenching the armrest, which also doubles as a control panel. You remember having seen Captain Bartholomew insert her keycard into the equipment panel on the Gun-Dog on occasion to unlock certain functions. A grim wave of realization hits you as you think that if the card wasn't on the captain, the control panel is the most likely place it would be. The only issue with that was Captain Gerard's death grip was covering the slot for the keycard. Gotta do what has to be done. With a knot in your stomach, you lay your hand on the captain's. A shiver runs down your spine. You're just starting to squeeze your fingers underneath his palm and start pulling, when as you look down, you notice the gleam of a starlight reflecting off a piece of plastic by the captain's foot. With a huge sigh of relief, you kneel down and take the card from the floor. Luckily for you, the captain must have dropped it just before he was shocked. Hopefully it still works. As you pass the card from one hand to another, inspecting the front and back, you see that it appears to have all but melted. The plastic coating is mostly stripped away, and what remains is bubbled up, with the remnants of the magnetic strip flaking off. You can tell from its condition that it's not getting you anywhere. You sigh as you lay the remnants of the card by the captain's hand. If you can't find a card with access to the central computer, there's no hope for the O'Brien. Okay, what about this fellow? You knew that you needed to find a key card belonging to a member of the O'Brien's crew to explore the ship further. Ideally, this card would belong to either the captain or someone from operations, as this would give you access to the central computer. The captain's card had been fried beyond usability by whatever happened to him, but maybe Lieutenant Bashir's card had been more lucky? You gingerly move towards Lieutenant, and doing your best to be as gentle as possible, you pat down his left-hand trouser pockets. Feeling nothing through the thick gloves of your spacesuit, you head to the other side of his chair before repeating the same action on his right pockets. This time you feel something. With a sense of unease, you attempt to remove the contents of his pocket whilst trying not to disturb the body too much. Eventually, but with some difficulty caused by the clumsiness of your spacesuit and your desire not to disturb Bashir's body any more than you need to, you manage to pull out what feels like it could be his keycard. Damaged again. You turn the card over a few times. It's definitely the Lieutenant's keycard, but it looks like it's been half melted. Not only is it warped out of shape, but the plastic coating is blistered, with the magnetic strip on the back almost entirely peeled off. You can tell from its condition that it's totally useless. You wouldn't even be able to fit it into any card reader or terminal, even if the surface hadn't been ruined. Great. Looks like this won't get me anywhere. Just like the captain's, hopefully I can find the second in command. Otherwise, there will be nothing we can do for the O'Brien. Okay, what do we got here? Hansen seems to be hard at work under this station. I should probably leave him alone. I don't think he'd appreciate my help even if he needed it. As you look over the bridge for any clue that might help you solve what happened on board the O'Brien, your gaze is caught by the view of space through the main window. You knew that one of those lights was the Gun-Dog, the sole reassuring thought you'd had the entire time you'd been here. But what else was out there? What had happened didn't look like any attack that you'd ever seen. But what could possibly have happened on the O'Brien to cause all this? Looking out into space won't help me figure this out. Okay, well, that was disappointing. Having made your way back to the maintenance crawlway, you work your way down into the darkness. The dull starlight from the airlock that illuminates the central hub barely illuminating the exit below you. As you continue towards it, you pause as your radio hisses into life. Hello, Hanson? Lieutenant Commander Quinn from the JFS Gun-Dog. Cassie, what are you doing on this? We're picking up your signal and have arrived at the rendezvous area. Please transmit your precise coordinates. Over. What? What? Cassie, what are you? We read you. That's a sweet voice you got there, Gun-Dog. I'm transmitting coordinates and mission update files now. It's good to finally... What? This is from when... How's that even possible? Like, the radio waves caught in, like, a time distortion loop or something? Roger that, JFS O'Brien. This is Lieutenant Commander Quinn from the JFS Gun-Dog. We're picking up your signal and have arrived at the rendezvous area. Please transmit your precise coordinates. Over. We read you. That's a sweet voice you got there, Gun-Dog. I'm transmitting coordinates and mission update files now. It's good to finally... The snippet of conversation between Cassie and Lieutenant Bashir loops a few times until eventually fading out into static. With as little explanation as why the transmission started, it ends. What would be transmitting that recording? Huh? Okay, I mean, I guess it isn't necessarily time distortion or something. Like, it could just be that something on this ship recorded the conversation is now just faultily transmitting it for some reason. But it's odd, for sure. Okay, that's locked off. Yeah, we won't be able to get into anywhere here, so... I don't reckon we can get to the sickbay. You reach out into the maintenance crawlway and grab a rung on the ladder. Stepping forward, you place your feet onto another rung that you can barely see. Then, instead of following Hanson up, you start moving downwards. As you descend the crawlway, eventually it becomes completely dark. The only indication you're given that you've reached the bottom is when you bring your foot down and you unexpectedly stomp on a floor panel. Now at the bottom of the shaft, you grope around in the darkness, looking for the catch that will release the panel by the elevator into the sickbay. After a few minutes of sliding your palms around blindly, your suit's glove catches on something. You investigate with your fingertips to confirm it's what you're looking for before releasing it, grabbing the panel as it falls away and placing it to the side as you step through into the sickbay. Ooh, that's no good. With no rush of air to indicate that you depressurized the room, you're almost entirely certain you knew what to expect, but what you find goes beyond that. Behind the desk, set to meet those who enter the sickbay, you see the crumpled form of someone wearing a white coat much like Dr. Rosarium's. You quickly make your way over to them, but as you do, you stop momentarily as you feel something crunching underneath your boots. Looking around, you can see that the doctor's surrounded by broken glass. Taking stock of the room, you realize that the cabinets at the far end of the sickbay are all still locked, but the glass panels have been shattered and the contents scattered. Someone ransacked the room. Instead of trying to puzzle out what's happened, you turn your attention back to the doctor, kneeling down by them, and gently turning them over. You're faced with a woman who seems to be in her mid-50s, her sandy hair done up in a loose bun with errant strands tucked behind her ears. You notice that of the two lenses set into her round, wire-framed spectacles, one is cracked and the frames sit askew on her face. Although her pale blue eyes are wide open and staring at you, they don't move, and she does not blink. Her skin is pallid, matching the color blue of her eyes, the striking red of her lipstick standing out in a dramatic contrast. You stay holding the doctor for a moment before gently laying her down, and with as much delicacy as you can manage in your bulky spacesuit, you close her eyes. As you stand up, you exhale deeply. Unlike the crew on the bridge, the doctor didn't appear to have suffered from any burns or shocks. If you had to guess, it seemed that something had struck her, although you had no idea whether it was that or the lack of atmosphere that had been responsible for her death. That's 3 confirmed loss, then. You muttered to yourself, stepping away from the doctor, more glass crunching underneath your soles. It was increasingly likely that this is how things would be on the rest of the ship, especially considering the central area had been depressurized with no safety measures engaged. You've been holding out hope that at least some of the crew had made it, but based on what you'd seen on the bridge and here, that didn't seem likely. As you survey the room, you turn your attention back to the glass underfoot and the shattered frontage of the cabinets. What happened here? Let's take a look at these cabinets. As you headed towards the back of the room to examine the cabinets, you feel the crunch of glass fragments under your feet. Although the floor is scattered with various boxes and bottles of different medicine, there is something in particular that catches your eye. You squat down and pick up an open packet that you recognize NutriShake mix. Huh. As you turn the pouch over in your hands and look inside, you find it's completely empty of the powder that it should contain. Placing it back on the floor, you look around and realize that whilst all the boxes of medication are all still sealed, the packets you can see torn open are all NutriShake packets. Why? Would someone really do all this for NutriShakes? NutriShakes. It is worth questioning, how long have they been derelict here? Because NutriShake packets, right? That would probably be one of your most nutrient-dense food items that you could get in 0G. We already know for a fact that at least some transmissions are being recorded and sent out well after the point in time where the people who initially sent them are dead. Is it plausible that our initial transmission we picked up from the O'Brien was also a recording, and they've actually been like this for days or weeks? And if so, perhaps there's a lone survivor that's been living off of just NutriShake powder. Maybe. Let's see if we can get a keycard from the doctor. You stand over the doctor, aware of what you need to do, but not finding the concept altogether pleasant. The bridge crew's cards had been half melted. If the doctor's was in the same condition, you'd need to hope you could find someone else whose card you could use. Sorry about this, doctor. Squatting beside her, you pat the doctor down. Unlike Dr. Rosarium, who wears his on a lanyard around his neck, you don't see this doctor's keycard anywhere. Although the thickness of your spacesuit's gloves makes the task difficult, you do your best to be respectful. Eventually you reach the doctor's waist and feel a protrusion from her side. Opening her white coat, you see an internal pocket, and after a moment spent trying to fit your gloved hand inside, you manage to grab a hold of something and pull it out. Okay, we got a good one. You got the doctor's keycard. Unlike the bridge crews, this card was in perfect condition. You stand up and read the name on the back of the card. Dr. Ezri DeBoer. You unclasp a pouch on the side of your suit, deposit the card, and then close it again. The doctor won't have the clearance to let me access the central computer, but maybe this will let me find someone who does. Thank you for your help, Dr. DeBoer. I'm just sorry we didn't get here sooner. Okay. So now we can go back to the Foresight Thoroughfare, and we should be able to access the hangar. With Dr. DeBoer's keycard, I'll be able to access the hangar. Although there's a chance that whoever is in there may not be in a spacesuit yet. If I open these doors now, I risk putting them out in the vacuum. There may be something I've missed that could let me get at the access codes more safely. We'll keep exploring. It's really tempting to just charge in there and grab them, but I should only do that if there's no other option. I'll have this sorted out soon, whoever you are. Okay. If we can get to the captain's quarters... Because we know these guys are dead. You approach the captain's quarters at the end of the corridor, and see the same Jovian insignia as the one on Captain Bartomew's door. Below it is a nameplate which proudly presents the O'Brien's captain's full name, Paul Henry Gerard. With Dr. DeBoer's key card in your possession, you move towards the captain's door and lay the PST off to the side. You know that you're not going to find Captain Gerard in there, and the chances of anyone else being in his quarters is extremely slim. But the potential that there might be something of use in there, like the O'Brien's access codes, is too great to ignore. Alright, let's go for it. Alright, PST. You kneel down beside the terminal linked to the captain's quarters, and begin the well-practiced process of connecting the PST and going through its menus, eventually selecting the unlock function. And now, access. With a sense of trepidation, you unfasten the pouch on your belt and take out the doctor's keycard. As a security officer, your card had enough authority to access every room short of the central computer, even the captain's. You weren't entirely sure that a doctor's card would be sufficient, but maybe, right? Because I feel like if someone was having a medical emergency in their room, you would want the doctor to have the authority to kind of override the locking mechanisms and be able to get in there. Without much of an alternative, you slide Dr. DeBoer's card into the slot and hold your breath. Thankfully, you see the door begin to slowly slide open, and with an exhalation of relief, you stand up. Once the door is open enough to allow you through, you make your way inside. As you'd expected, Captain Gerard's quarters were almost identical to Captain Bartomew's, with a few small differences, like the lack of any open bottles of liquor. In the place of the whiskey bottle you'd seen in Captain Mary's room, you see a nearby pruned bonsai, but beyond that, there is nothing obviously distinct. Even the artwork on the wall behind the desk is the same. Well, time to get to work. Let's see if I can find something useful. Alright. Let's look around here. The captain's desk, just like the Captain Bartomew's, it's got a terminal and what it looks like a telephone. Probably a hotline to the bridge. I think I like Captain Gerard's desk ornament much more than Captain Bartomew's, though. What could be in those files? Alright, the terminal's not going to be working, so let's check those drawers. You head around to the back of the desk and try each drawer, working your way up from the top to bottom. Please. Unsurprisingly, they're all locked. I'll need to find the keys if I'm going to get in there. Okay, what about... As you head into the bedroom, you take the time to look around thoroughly. You hadn't liked doing this in Captain Bartomew's quarters, and you didn't like doing it anymore here. Working your way from left to right, you check the large chest of drawers before moving to the bedside table, and then eventually the area around the bed. Despite a rigorous check of the room, you don't find anything interesting or useful, just personal effects of the captain that you can't help but feel guilty for rifling through. What about the bathroom? Although you can't think of anything important that you might find in the captain's bathroom, you feel a compulsion to search it anyway. Despite a thorough examination, the only thing you leave with that you didn't have when you entered is an in-depth knowledge of the captain's choice of bathroom products. The painting. There's a time and place for thinking about civil heritage, and now isn't it? Okay. So where might the captain's key be? About the crew quarters. Stand in front of the door that on the Gun-Dog would be the entrance to Cassandra's quarters. You begin to feel a bit queasy. You've been doing your best not to think about how, aside from some lucky coincidences, this could have happened to the Gun-Dog instead of the O'Brien. Despite your best efforts to keep that thought out of your mind, you can't help but dwell on it, seeing a door that could have been Cassie's. Who spends their free time on the other side of this door? Is it as much of a mess as Cassie's room? How close were the two of you from having this happen to you? Now's not the time for that. You remind yourself, stating it out loud to force the thoughts away. With your focus back on the task at hand, you repeat the process you've been using to check for signs of life or crew activity. Unfortunately, you get nothing back. Okay. Thoroughfare. What about the quarters, quarter one? Can we go to anywhere here? Stood outside of the door that would be yours. Had you served on the O'Brien instead of the Gun-Dog, you can't help but feel a bit nauseous. The familiarity of the door, the corridor, the thoroughfare, it all forces you to think about how close the Gun-Dog came to being out here before the O'Brien. Push that thought from your mind. As close as it was to happening, it didn't. You were here now, not whoever lived behind that door. Balling up your right hand into a fist, you hammer against the door, then place your helmet against it, waiting for a response. When you don't get one, you repeat the process a few more times, until eventually you step back, rubbing your gloved hand to try to ease the soreness from pounding on the door. No one's in. Okay. Alright, what about... We haven't gone to the mess hall. Given the time when the Gun-Dog and presumably O'Brien had blacked out, you knew there shouldn't have been anyone in the mess hall. Despite this, you also knew that it wasn't uncommon for crew members to disappear from stations briefly to grab a quick pick-me-up or a treat, especially if their duty was quiet. And especially if that crew member's name was Cassandra Quinn. You go through the routine of hammering on the door, waiting for a response, and continuing to batter it with your fist, just in case you hadn't been heard the first time. Despite your best efforts, you don't manage to get a response. Okay. Fire control. You exhale slowly as you look at the door to the O'Brien's fire control. On the Gun-Dog, Dylan had the music to keep him occupied. Whoever was assigned to this station on the O'Brien probably wasn't so lucky. With this thought in mind, you carry out the process of hammering on the door, resting your helmet on it, and then giving it another go after getting nothing but silence in return. After a few attempts where you hear nothing coming from the room beyond you, you step back, mentally crossing this room from your list of potential safe havens on board. Okay, so we know someone's probably in the hangar. We would like to access the captain's drawers, but we need a key for that. Let's go to the hub. We didn't examine the airlock very thoroughly. You stop as you enter the room just before the airlock. Where you'd been so used to the huge main shutter and its warnings on the Gun-Dog, here on the O'Brien was nothing but a vast corridor into space. Being able to see the stars like this from this position, you couldn't help but feel uncomfortable. Their light, as gentle as it is, feels like a forced intrusion on this room, somewhere they should never illuminate. You spend a few more moments gazing out of the airlock before you shake at your head to clear your thoughts. If there was any hope for the O'Brien's crew, it was that you'd act as fast, and your stargazing wasn't helping anyone. Let's look at the suits. Both still here. It doesn't look like anyone here has done a spacewalk of their own unless they used the suit from somewhere else. What's the deal with this, though? The panel is still covering the emergency access lever. How could they have opened the door without using it? Yeah, that's intriguing. And I guess if they... Because that's like the emergency, there's no power, you can do it manually thing. But it's like, why would they have intentionally opened it while the power was on? That doesn't make sense either. And there's like an exterior way to get it, I'm sure, but that would imply like a boarding. Okay. Okay, let's go to the aft thoroughfare. We haven't tried knocking on the engineering. Just like you had seen on the Gun-Dog a few hours earlier when the aft thoroughfare should transition into the engineering department, instead all you see is a gigantic blast door. From experience, crawling underneath one of these, you knew that there was no way you could ever help with moving it manually. On top of that, there was no point in attempting to open it before you had the emergency access codes. With the battery power the door took to open, you'd probably shut yourself in engineering with no way of getting back out. Although you had the doctor's card, with the captain dead, you need to find either the O'Brien's second in command or the emergency access codes, if you had any hope of getting the ship back online. You turn back and move away from the door, making your way back to the aft thoroughfare. Like, what about the armory? Just like you had on the other closed doors, you go through the process of making as much noise as possible at the door and waiting for a response. However, there's no answer to your attempted communication, and you head back, justifying the lack of response by thinking that no one should be in there anyway. Okay. So I'm starting to think maybe we do need to open up the hangar. I don't know. I feel like there could still be something we're missing in the captain's quarters. Like, we didn't look in here. A bed, chest of drawers, a bedside table, pretty much all the same things as Captain Bottomy's quarters. Just tidier. Without the captain's keys, there's no getting these drawers open. I'm not going to waste the oxygen trying to break into them. Okay. Where could we more thoroughly search? We could maybe go back to the medical, the sick bay. Maybe, because like if the captain stopped by here at some point, maybe keys were left? Seems like a bit of a stretch, but there's no one in there right now. No point in opening that door. All vacant. Could whoever have done this been in here for treatment? Dr. DeBoer, who did this to you? These don't look very comfortable at the best of times. Our spacesuit definitely would not help things either. You walk up to one of the cabinets with a broken glass frontage and gently pull on its handle. As you'd expected, it's still locked and doesn't budge. Looking down at your feet amongst various packets of medication that appear to have been hastily pulled out of the cabinet, you can see a selection of Nutri-Shake packets all torn open. Picking one up, you check its contents to find it's completely empty. Could this really have happened over nutritional supplements? As you head towards, you examine the cabinets. Still just a Nutri-Shake. What's our inventory? Not much. Not much. Well, maybe... Okay. Maybe we go back up to the bridge. Now that we know we need the captain's key, we can search his body specifically for the key, instead of the key card. There's no sense disturbing the captain any further. Never mind. Okay, well, let's read... Can we look at the map? Obtain access codes or find the first officer. Okay, well, we don't have the map for this ship, but it should be identical to the other one. Like, is there anywhere we could go that we haven't yet? I don't think so, so I think we gotta open the hangar. I don't think we really have another way forward at this point. Okay. And there's spacesuits in the hangar, right? Surely they would have put them on by now, right? Besides, nowhere else has been pressurized, so odds are the hangar isn't either. With Dr. DeBoer's keycard, I'll be able to access the hangar. Although there's a chance that whoever's in there might not be in a spacesuit yet. If I open these doors now, I risk pulling them out in the vacuum. There may be something I've missed that could let me get the access codes more safely. Okay, hold on. Before we jump in there, I bet we can go back and... Let's at least talk to... Because now that we know we need the codes, you can at least talk to Hansen and see if maybe he knows a thing or two about that? Maybe he just encountered them randomly? You look towards Hansen, who remains most out of sight, hidden by the bulk of the workstation. You spend a few seconds thinking about asking him if he needs any help or asking how things are going, but after considering the likely responses you'd get to those questions, you decide against it. Probably better to leave him be. Okay, can't do that then. And he's in operations, he might know a thing. Lieutenants and captains' cards may not have been destroyed by whatever happened, but at least I've got Dr. DeBoer's. With that, I can access most of the ship. I might get lucky and find the O'Brien second in command somewhere. Alright, I think you gotta make the tough call here. You gotta go into the hangar. Here we go. Alright, let's see who's in there. Because, like, here's the thing, too. Contrary to popular belief, right? Vacuum space isn't instant death. So, like, even if they aren't wearing a suit, it's, like, plausible. If there's one nearby, we could maybe get them into one quick enough for them to not die. I think. I don't know. I mean, it's not a good situation for sure, but it's better than being trapped on a ship forever. Alright, let's see who's in here. Hello? Alright, I gotta open it. You unlatch the front of the portable sub-terminal's casing and activate the device, watching pensively as it runs through its startup sequence. Once completed, you hurriedly run through all the necessary options as quickly as you can, doing your best to ensure that you use the least amount of battery power necessary. One last thing. The keycard. You quickly unfasten the pouch you'd place the doctor's keycard in, withdraw it, and slot it into the device. With the same infuriating slowness as all the others, the doors to the hangar begin to move. You waste no time in standing up and working your way through the tight gap before the doors are even a quarter of the way open. Noticing the absence of any signs of depressurization, you continue to force your way through the doors. That's a good sign. As soon as you're through, you vault your way down the stairwell, skipping increasingly more steps at a time, as the gravity disappears until you're eventually floating past entire sets of stairs altogether. Setting your radio to broadcast with one hand and grabbing the guard rail in front of you with the other, you call out into the dark void of the hangar. Hello, is anyone in here? Hello, this is Lieutenant Kraft from the JFS Gun-Dog. We've come to help. Hello? You peer into the darkness, straining to see any signs of life. You knew that you'd heard activity here from the other side of the door, so where were they? Oh, what's this? Hello? What? That doesn't look friendly. You stand frozen in place, unable to move your legs, unable to speak, as a huge machine that has just pulled itself out of the darkness looms over you. It's unlike anything you've seen before. No ship, shuttle, armored frame, or worker pod that you know of looks the slightest bit like this. As you will yourself to do something, anything, the thing in front of you remains totally motionless. Until suddenly, please don't shoot, please don't shoot. Something deep inside you tells you that you've only got moments to react to whatever is going on. Communicate. You slowly raise both your hands, palms spread, and take a step towards the thing. Considering how this machine was in the O'Brien's hangar, it shouldn't be hostile. Maybe it was a prototype or something that they've been testing prior to their mission to investigate the strange signals. I'm Lieutenant Kraft from the JFS Gun-Dog. We've come to help you reactivate the O'Brien. This is probably an alien, and if it's an alien, this is either going to go really well or really bad. You wait for a response but neither hear nor see anything. That indicates whoever is on board has acknowledged you. Whoever's in that thing, I'm Lieutenant Kraft from the JFS Gun-Dog. We've come to... You pause, having just noticed the sparks of electricity appearing around the most forward protrusion on the machine. Within a few seconds, you see it illuminated from the inside by an intense light. What?